The moment Sarah, the fake daughter, falsely accused me and threw me out of the house, the whole family unexpectedly heard her thoughts. To her, Dad was an easy ATM, Mom was just a foolish old nag. Sarah kept basking in the love and attention like a pampered rose, clueless that everyone suddenly saw through her facade. In the hospital, Sarah lay there, her curling long hair wrapped in bandages. Her face was pale, streaked with tears in her sleep. Dad, Mom, Jack, don't abandon me. I'm scared. Mia said I took her stuff and wants to punish me. I'm so afraid. As she mumbled in her dreams, my parents and brother, Jack, all looked at me with teary eyes. I was the real daughter who had been missing for 16 years. After being found, Sarah tried every trick to set me up. This time, she fell down the stairs just walking past me. I clenched my fists. I didn't push her, she fell on her own. But clearly, the favored one could do no wrong. Whether I spoke up or not, they only believed what they wanted to believe. Jack sneered, Sarah's terrified of pain, Mia. You're saying she caused it herself? She loves her looks too much to risk scarring her forehead. Even Dad looked disappointed. Mia, I thought with your grades, you'd have morals like ours. Never imagined you'd pick up bad habits and go so far to hurt your sister. Mom, her heart aching for Sarah, even got down on her knees, begging me, don't go after your sister. Understand her. She's been weak since childhood, so she can't handle this. What they didn't know was that when Sarah had those people force me to drink toilet water, she was much stronger than now. It's ironic, really. Swapping me with the help of a maid, Sarah had stolen my life, and now I'm expected to empathize with her, the beneficiary. Sarah woke up then, slowly opening her eyes. They were red and swollen. Dad, Mom, Jack, don't be mad at Mia. Maybe she just wants your affection and can't stand me being around. I really did fall down the stairs by accident. It's no big deal. Her eyes darted about, fearful of me. When the doctor brought in the reports showing Sarah only had a mild concussion, Jack lost his patience. Mia, you're just like those country folks, only after our money, and that's why you can't stand Sarah. Finally, they decided they couldn't handle it anymore and discussed sending me back to the village I was raised in. Mia, we know we wronged you by losing you those years, but your behavior is unbearable. We'll send you living expenses regularly, but you can't stay here. I took a deep breath, giving them a grim smile. If you were a family, why the charade of finding me? I worked like a dog for your fake daughter for 16 years, and you never checked in. Now that I've seen through it, I'll leave on my own. Hit by my words, they fell into silence. I left with the tattered school uniform I came in. Just as I turned to leave, there was a sudden voice we all heard. It was Sarah, joyfully ranting, these idiots finally did something useful. All my efforts paid off. Now, the family's fortune will be mine. Way overplayed it this time. It hurt so much, hope it doesn't scar. Shocked, my parents and brother stared at her, but Sarah, oblivious, stayed with her tear-stricken act. She cast an affectionate glance at Jack, her eyes filled with an odd shyness. Jack is so handsome and sweet. Took time off just for me. At least there's a silver lining. Confirming the voice was Sarah sent a chill through Mom and Dad. I was puzzled too. Clearly, she didn't speak aloud, so how did we hear her voice? Sarah, what are you saying? Mom asked, trembling, disbelief etched into her face. Dad frowned, touched her forehead. Fever's gone, it can't be back. Why is she rambling nonsense? Sarah looked confused, Dad, I wasn't speaking. Maybe you heard wrong? But then, everyone heard her again. Ugh, get your filthy hands off. I wouldn't pretend to like calling you a dad if you weren't loaded. How'd you manage to have such a handsome son? Dad pulled his hand back quickly, face darkening. Sarah blinked innocently. Mom, Daddy, you're still sending Mia away, right? What's wrong? Mom stifled her shaking, forced a scratchy voice, and finally, with one last glance at me, said, forget it. I acted rashly. We worked hard to find Mia, we should be patient and keep her. Dad nodded, almost against his own will. Yeah, our company is big enough for more kids. No need to kick out our biological child. Sarah panicked at this. Are you sure you want Mia living here with me? Look at my injury. She raised her bandaged head. Damn, check out these wounds. What's up with this old nag's menopause? If the thief isn't kicked out, I'm forever an imposter. She's supposed to love me most, and look at the crazy old man. Enough wealth, eager to share it with strangers? Though Sarah pouted like she'd agree, inside her forehead creased. Well, guess I'll have to do my best to get along with Mia. Meanwhile, Jack seemed restless, mumbling he'd imagined it all. Sarah couldn't have said those things. I started chuckling internally. Is it so hard for him to accept his sister's true self? But if everyone hears Sarah's thoughts now, more truths will unfold. Once she was discharged, Sarah returned to school, sharing the ride with me this time. Sarah raised an annoyed eyebrow. Can you believe she has the nerve to look all grubby and sit in the same car with me? The driver said, Madam instructed that Miss Mia and Miss Sarah should be driven to school together from now on. Sarah and I are in the same class. During a break, this tall, burly upperclassman swaggered to the classroom door. I'm here for my sister. The moment I spotted him, a chill ran through me like a snake wrapped around my ankle. That was Ken, the school bully who had a thing for Sarah. Sarah calls him her brother because of his size, and thanks to him, she's been able to lead her gang of mean girls around the school. Ken's always looked out for her because he practically dotes on his sister, even tormenting me once. He had a group of guys drag me to a little grove and humiliated me mercilessly. Those experiences are nightmares I dare not revisit. This time, when Ken came to see her, Sarah walked up to him with a slight frown but still sweetly called him brother. The next second, Ken picked up on her thoughts. So annoying, Ken's here again today, and he reeks of sweat. Ugly bastard, not even close to being as good as my brother. If you weren't useful, I wouldn't get so close to you, you stink. Surface level friends, right? I was shocked to learn Sarah even hated her own ally. Not only did she curse him in her mind, she mocked him too. Ken's face flushed with disbelief. Sis, I'm here to take you to lunch. What are you even talking about? Sarah, clueless, hugged his waist playfully. Really? I want to try that new Hokkaido place at Elephant City. Can you take me? As she spoke, she turned her head away, unable to contain her disdain. This waste is just gross, he looks like some thug with a toothpick. No choice now, to teach Mia a lesson, I've got to play along and wrap him around my finger. Ken's smile turned stiff, but Sarah still tugged on his arm, whining. Ken, brother, I didn't come to school a few days ago because Mia pushed me down the stairs. I've got a scar on my forehead, boo-hoo. She immediately played the victim, pointing at me for Ken to take action. Ken's dad was the biggest investor in this fancy school, so no one dared challenge him. But this time, Ken didn't raise a hand against me like usual. As the warning bell rang, his expression was odd. Sarah, just rest for now. It's almost class time, I gotta go. For the first time, Ken shook off Sarah's hand, leaving her baffled. Sarah puzzled over why Ken cared about the bell for the first time. After school, the thing that drove Sarah to the edge happened. On break from college, her brother, who hadn't had a girlfriend before, brought one home. There, on the couch, sat a long-haired girl, one of Jack's classmates in a white, strappy dress, exuding maturity and elegance compared to Sarah's youthful looks. The moment Sarah saw her, her eyes widened in disbelief, and she threw a childish fit. Bro. Didn't you say you didn't want to date and just wanted to be in the lab? Why are you seeing someone? Her brother thought it was typical jealousy and tried comforting her. Feelings are uncontrollable. When you're older, you'll date too, and having a girlfriend doesn't change you being my treasured sister. Knowing tantrums didn't work, Sarah's eyes turned red. Do you remember, bro? You said you'd protect Sarah forever. If I wasn't getting married, you wouldn't get a girlfriend, always being my protective tree. She softened her voice, and sure enough, Jack felt a pang of guilt. But he remained stern as he continued, those were childhood promises. Having a sister-in-law just means more protection for you. Even if you're wronged, I'll always be there for you. Yet Sarah continued her meltdown, crying even louder. Everyone there heard her furious inner thoughts. Look at the chick my brother's dating, bet she's not even that pure. I liked him first. How do I break them up? Maybe drug her and ditch her at a club. The girl visibly flinched, and Jack, about to comfort, found Sarah clinging onto his arm first. But at her touch, Jack instinctively shook off her hand. His eyes met hers with a mix of unfamiliarity and disgust. Sarah, you're almost an adult. You should know the boundaries between men and women, even with family. Sarah froze, looking at her hand in disbelief, then pouted. I just hugged you. Is that so much to ask for now, bro? She whined. Meanwhile, I quietly munched on sunflower seeds, enjoying the chaos. Sarah glared at the girl on the couch, and again, we all picked up on her spiteful thoughts. Stupid witch, just loves to seduce men. My brother never dated anyone before this, she's just using him for money. That girl finally couldn't take it, stood up with red eyes, and turned to Jack. Jack, I know I'm not good enough for you, but I didn't expect your sister to hate me. Your family's world is beyond me. Let's break up. She politely bowed to my parents with tears in her eyes, grabbed her bag, and left without looking back. Don't go. Jack rushed out, but couldn't catch up. When he returned, breathless with red eyes, he was barely controlling his anger. Enough. His voice clenched, full of rage at Sarah's smugness. Sarah, you're my sister. There's nothing between us. Get over it. His voice was firm and final. Sarah's face showed a flicker of panic, not expecting him to see through her. Bro, what are you talking about? You know exactly what I mean. Jack's patience snapped, his forehead veins pulsing, far from his usual gentle self. She stood stunned for a long time, realizing no one was defending her. Under her parents' complex gaze, she ran to her room in tears. Now, I've fully pieced it together. When you're close enough, you can hear her every thought. A small smile played on my lips. Since fate seems to want to help me out, I'm taking back what's rightfully mine. When everyone else had gone to sleep, Sarah texted me to meet her on the balcony. I followed silently. She blamed everything on me, smirking defiantly. Don't think I don't know. It's because you stirred up trouble and spread lies that my brother has distanced himself from me. I smiled, unfazed. What did I stir up? What lies did I spread? If anyone has inappropriate feelings for their brother, isn't it you? That's when Sarah started to realize. So it was you. Did you sneak a peek at my phone and tell him? You're just despicable. She bit her lip. You think you can take my spot with those little tricks? Dream on. My brother said he'll protect me forever, and you'll always be an outsider. Sarah was still living in the fantasy she'd built for herself. But she didn't know that fake affection couldn't fill the void of security I lacked growing up. What I want is a future I've fought for. Sarah thought she had me cornered, then strolled off in her silky pajamas after seeing me drop my gaze. On my way back inside, I overheard my mom on the phone in her room. She had asked her friend, a gym teacher at a prestigious high school, to find out if I was being bullied. I started hatching a plan. The next day on the way to school, I purposely made sarcastic remarks to Sarah. She was so mad she was clenching her teeth but had to keep up her sweet image around others. The whole day, I could feel her eyes burning a hole in my back. I knew Sarah was waiting for me to be alone, out of sight of everyone. Couldn't possibly let her down, right? During the break, when Sarah and her crew ditched class as usual, I slipped away to the restroom. I caught a glimpse of the female teacher who had followed me from a distance. As expected, I was cornered in the deserted bathroom outside. Sarah stepped on my shoulder blade with her shoe, looking down on me with a sinister smile, like a wicked demon. You sure got guts, Mia. Why aren't you so bold now? One of the girls joined in. Sarah, is this the imposter daughter trying to claim kinship? Disgusting. Sarah's tall and beautiful, clearly rich. But her? Dark, scrappy, must be some mutt from God knows where. I suddenly found it funny. To protect Sarah's ego and status, my parents didn't want her to be exposed as a fake heiress, so they said we were sisters, and I was a long-lost daughter found. But here she was, telling people I was a sham. Her vanity peaked, a smile forming on her lips. Then they heard a voice. Actually, Mia is your real sister, but so what? I don't want her around. I'm the popular one here. Go ahead, beat her up. In the end, you guys take the blame, while I manipulate you morons like a rich princess. It's exhilarating. The girls froze, exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. Sarah came back puzzled when they didn't act. Why aren't you doing it? Cut her up. I was too kind before. Now, I'll ruin her face, let my brother see her lies. They looked at her differently, hesitated, then shook their heads. Sarah, we thought we were friends, but you sure don't treat us that way. What do you mean? We've bullied before, why stop now? Frustrated, she shoved them aside, ready to do it herself. Just as her hand was about to strike, a strong arm intervened. It was the gym teacher, eyes stern, scanning everyone. Sarah recognized her immediately, panicking. Teacher, why are you here? The crew scattered, and the teacher asked Sarah what she was doing. She was speechless. I was asking my sister about math. The running's done, so I gotta go. Sarah fled, while the teacher helped me up. She said she'd report everything to my parents. Discovering the truth of Sarah's bullying, my parents felt guilty. They enrolled me, along with Sarah, in an exclusive math class only a few could attend. They acted normal with Sarah, but privately told me, Mia, we're sorry for wronging you before. Sarah's too willful. From now on, someone will secretly look out for you at school. Be at ease. We're trying to make up for it. Without Sarah knowing, her privileged world was slowly unraveling. Even though I joined the math class only a few months ago, I improved fast and impressed the teacher. He recommended I enter a math competition. I smiled. Really, it wasn't some lucky talent. It was 1 part talent, 9 parts hard work. Back in public school, I couldn't even afford textbooks. A volunteer teacher saw potential in me, tutoring me on advanced questions. She hoped I'd escape our small village on my own merit. Now, here I am, on the battlefield of my life, determined to fulfill her hopes. On the day I won first prize in the competition, my dad booked a big dining hall at our favorite restaurant to celebrate. By 8 p.m., the party had started, but Sarah was nowhere to be seen. Grandpa frowned. Her tardiness is her problem. Should we all starve waiting for her? In the 6 months since I returned, the family, influenced by Sarah, treated me coolly, except for Grandpa who adored me, proudly calling me his real granddaughter. He didn't like Sarah's spoiled and stubborn ways. He appreciated my maturity more. At this moment, Grandpa raised his glass with great enthusiasm. Today, we gather to celebrate having a math genius in the family. Our ancestors were all about literature, and you're the first to make a mark in math and science. I blushed a little and lifted my cup of tea. Thank you, Grandpa. I'll toast with tea instead of wine, to your health and longevity. Everyone couldn't help but clap for me. At that moment, swallowing a sip of bitter tea, I felt a certain lightness. It was like all the hardships of the past 16 years had finally been washed down. Midway through the dinner, Sarah finally showed up, fashionably late. Her hair was a mess and she wasn't even dressed up. She stormed towards me and poured a glass of red wine all over me, then flipped the table over. Sarah. What are you doing? Dad's face darkened immediately. It was a big occasion, and not just family and friends were here, but also his business partners. Mom was at a loss, surprised that the usually frail foster daughter had such strength. But Sarah didn't care, pointing at me and yelling. You're all celebrating this country bumpkin while ignoring me. She cheated her way through everything. There's no way she did those tough math problems coming from that backwater. I looked at her in shock, but a smile played at the corners of my mouth. She had been in the math class for years and couldn't even get past the prelims. I'd been in a different class, so she didn't know my progress at all. I calmly wiped the wine off, my face unchanged. So, you're saying I cleverly cheated through the prelims, the regional finals, and then all the way to the national level, accidentally winning first place? Dad scolded her for being ridiculous. Even in a city-level math competition, there's surveillance. How could your sister possibly cheat? Sarah was speechless, meeting my amused gaze. Under the chandelier, even with the wine-stained dress, I was still radiant as ever. Arms folded, I waited patiently. Under everyone's scrutinizing and disdainful looks, Sarah was no longer the little princess everyone adored. She completely lost it, slapping me across the face. It's all because of you. I hate that you didn't die in that mountain village. Why did Mom and Dad have to find you? Covering my face, the sting brought a strange satisfaction. Go crazy, I thought. Until you reach rock bottom, until you feel all my pains. Grandpa witnessed everything. He slammed his cane on the floor, his chest rising and falling with anger. We raised you for so many years, and you're this ungrateful? As the family's leader, his outrage made Sarah snap back to some sanity, shutting her mouth. But it was too late, everything she felt came out loud and clear for everyone to hear. Why does Grandpa always favor Mia? I wish he'd just die already. There's still tens of millions for me to inherit. Grandpa, thinking she had actually spoken those treacherous words, pointed at her, trembling with anger. Sarah looked puzzled, confused at Grandpa's reaction as if he was having a health scare. Suddenly, he collapsed. Frightened, Sarah yelled, "Grandpa, what's wrong?" Everyone panicked and crowded around him. I quickly got his heart medicine from his pocket. Seconds passed, and Grandpa remained motionless on the floor. Sarah burst into tears, denying any blame. It wasn't me, he just fainted himself. Get out of the way. A force knocked her aside, it was Jack. I had already called 911, and Jack hurried Grandpa to the elevator. Before leaving, his eyes were red with anger, and he threatened Sarah. If something happens to Grandpa, I won't forgive you. Outside the emergency room, the red light flickered on Sarah's pale face. Jack came back from the corridor, his expression colder than ice. Sarah, overwhelmed with injustice, threw herself at him, crying that she hadn't done anything. But Jack, unable to bear it anymore, slapped her harshly. Enough. Her cries echoed in the hallway and faded to a whimper. I watched the light fade from Sarah's eyes as she crumbled to the ground. Then there was another slap. Dad gritted his teeth. If anything happens to Grandpa, I'll never forgive you, and you won't get a single dime of our family's wealth. Even Mom was disappointed. To think I've wasted 16 years of love hoping you'd be my child. Some traits can't be changed. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Grandpa was saved from the brink. I breathed a sigh of relief. The first thing Grandpa did when he woke wasn't to call for Dad or Jack, but to ask specifically for me. Next to his hospital bed, looking frail, Grandpa tried to smile. He motioned for me to lean in. When I did, he revealed his decision. Dad had grown lazy, wasting his years, and Jack was too immersed in his experiments, uninterested in business. Grandpa had bypassed them, leaving the inheritance to me. I've arranged for you to study business overseas, Mia. I hope you'll come back and lead the company to a brighter future. Holding Grandpa's hand tightly, a tear escaped me. Maybe I wasn't as cold-hearted as I thought. Maybe I did long for family warmth. As I left the hospital, daylight spread across the sky. My phone chimed with a notification in the family group chat. Sarah was threatening to take her life, claiming she wanted to apologize for her wrongs if everyone saw her that way. She even sent her real-time location. Parents, Jack, if any of you ever cared for me, come say goodbye. We rushed over, witnessing her on the rooftop as a dozen police cars had arrived, trying to calm her down. But I knew she wasn't going to jump. Because she was smart, Sarah held onto her identity, eyeing the family's billion-dollar fortune. So, she got what I was hinting at and called up some tabloids while she was on her way. Cameras were flashing all around when she got back into the public eye. Sarah, for sure, looked more composed. But, she still put on quite the show, shouting at the crowd below. My parents are siding with the daughter they found and, along with Mia, trying to push me out. I can't take their bullying, I've decided to end it all. Nobody expected it, but her parents and brother didn't seem alarmed. Yet, someone did panic below. A tearful woman's voice cried out, telling her not to jump. It was Jane, the nanny who had been fired, and Sarah's birth mother. The tears Sarah had barely managed to squeeze out froze on her face. Meanwhile, the media I brought along went into a frenzy, capturing this dramatic scene of family scandal. Miss Sarah, what's your connection to this nanny? Rumor has it the nanny swapped a baby girl with a wealthy heiress and sold her off into the hills. Is that true? Were you aware? Questions bombarded Sarah, leaving her flustered. She had never faced such humiliation all these years. Just then, the nanny, supported by the crowd, shakily climbed to the rooftop with Sarah. Finally, Sarah couldn't take it anymore, turning her back as she declared, I don't know you. Stay back, I'll jump if you come any closer. But as the nanny tearfully got closer, Sarah silently shouted in disgust, get lost, don't mess up my plans. Who do you think you are? Some trash picker, old and ugly, fit to be my mom? I'm ashamed to share your blood. What she didn't know was that the nanny had developed depression from years of longing for her daughter and guilt towards the family. Hearing Sarah's scorn broke her. She gave a sad smile, looked back at me and my parents, and as she jumped, her lips seemed to say just one thing, sorry. There were airbags set up below, but the nanny jumped where there were none. Despite efforts to save her, Jane died. And just like that, the truth of the baby swap was out for all to see. Sarah was exposed as a fake heiress, and her bullying of me at school came to light. In no time, Sarah's story was everywhere, front-page news. Comments flooded in, things like, "What a heartless person," to her real mom and her foster family, no conscience at all. People like this should live on plain porridge the rest of their lives. There truly are people who love nothing, care for nothing, but themselves. In the end, I moved back into the mansion I hadn't seen for 16 years and ordered Sarah out. She refused to leave, so I had security toss all her belongings out in an hour. She still had on the expensive necklace my brother gave her. Without hesitation, I tore it off. Jewels scattered everywhere, some went down the drain, but I didn't care. The only place they shouldn't be is on Sarah. Which piece of jewelry on you isn't mine? What makes you think you can still wear it? Sarah turned pale, defiantly glaring at me. My parents, my brother, my life. You took it all without shame, now give it back as it was. With every word, I stripped something off her until she was left in nothing but her underwear. I spared her final dignity, watching her shiver in the cold, looking utterly helpless. She sobbed into her hands, her voice hoarse, "You can't do this to me. I'm the daughter who's lived with them for 16 years, Dad. Brother, help me." I kept my eyes fixed on her, a cold smile forming. "Daughter? You've been taking what's mine for 16 years. How does that make you legit? And you, who didn't even have the courage to be yourself, led to your mother's death, are nothing but a fake." When the media interviewed me, I spared her a place, a 30-square-meter apartment in the city's poorest neighborhood. After all, Sarah did spend 16 years with the family. I couldn't just leave her out on the streets. The reporters praised my generosity. But really, I just wanted to see her living in that dirty, noisy slum. Watching her fall from grace, plummeting from heaven to hell. Isn't that something? Like Ken, the school bully, who fell hard when his wealthy real estate dad went bankrupt. Though he had some cash left. Rumor has it Sarah ended up with him, doing his laundry and often beaten up because she couldn't keep quiet. As for me, I went abroad for study, then came back to run my grandfather's company, hoping to make his lifelong dream even bigger. The road back was rough, full of mud and stones. But as I set foot on the future, dropping my long-held grudge, with hope renewed, what lay ahead was warm and bright, under a brilliant spring sky.